myself. I'm Benedikt Dellawalle. I'm LCA Expert and Customer Success Manager at EPDs. I joined in October 2024, meaning in this role, I'm responsible for getting our customers started with the EPDs platform, helping them in data collection to collect all data, to model their products, and to create EPDs, being there for support with the platform and also for all questions around LCAs and EPDs. Before EPDs, I worked at EFT Rosenheim and did a lot of manual LCAs and EPDs, also very manual data collection. So I gained a lot of insights into what are the problems at manufacturers by collecting data, what are challenges by doing manual LCAs, and how we can help. So let's start with today's webinar. A short overview of the agenda. We will start to address the most frequent challenges we see out there, then go on to the data requirements we have for creating LCAs and EPDs for construction products. We will briefly talk about internal coordination within data collection. So who is part of it? Who has it to be done by one person, or can I distribute it to several departments? Fourth point will be, what are the benefits of using a platform in the data collection for LCAs? And in the end, we will go quickly into the data collection framework, which will be also share afterwards, which can be used as a starting point for you to collect data for LCAs and EPDs. And as Janos also already mentioned, we'll have a question answer session in the end. So, hello everybody, also the latest journals. Maybe for ones who came just in, I made a short introduction, that's the agenda, and now we will start with the first point, frequent challenges we see in the data collection for LCAs and EPDs. So what we usually see is one of the biggest challenges in data collection is that the data requirements are not clear. I think there's a microphone open. Okay. Unclear data requirements, meaning there's a lack of clear overview on data requirements, which data is needed, in which form is it needed. All of these questions can complicate and delay data collection. I also saw that it can lead to frustration and also procrastination, delays in data collection. The second point is limited data availability. Usually the data is internally scattered across different departments. It is not clear who is responsible for which data, where can I find which data. It's usually not structured for the use in calculating LCAs. The third point is error-prone frameworks. In the usual process, as LCAs are done with consultancies, you usually hand out a framework, usually in Excel, where you request all the data for one product in one file, which can lead to confusion. This can overly complex the data collection. As you see, so many different informations requested in one sheet, and it can lead to mistakes or to double work in the end if you have to redo the data collection. The fourth point, there's a lot of coordination effort needed in the data collection, as multiple departments are usually involved in the data collection. So there has to be one person who coordinates it. It's a high effort for different people collecting different data within the same framework usually. So given these 4 points, we see there's a lack of structure, a lack of overview and not clear what do I have to collect, how do I have to collect it, and who has to collect the data. Second point we want to address today are the requirements we have for the data which have to be collected for LCAs and EPDs. The standards and the requirements in general for data collection come out of standards. The general standard here for LCAs is ISO 14044, who gives the general requirements which data have to be part of an LCA. EN 15804 plus A2 is the product-specific standard for construction products, giving more precise, more accurate information which data we need for EPDs for construction products. And the third standards we have are the so-called PCRs. Their product-specific requirements are given by specific construction products, which are usually provided by program operators. So 3 different levels of standards, different requirements for the creation of LCAs and EPDs. Second requirement is the reporting period. Data usually has to be collected for 1 single calendar year, so 12 consecutive months. The reason here is you want to cover a whole year of production with fluctuation in production data, with differences in demand and production output. So that's why you collect data for 1 whole year. Third point is the data validity. As a general rule, the data should be as up-to-date as possible, but it may not be older than 5 years. Is there already a question, or? Okay. And the fourth point, allocation. As we create EPDs, environmental product declarations, we need information on a product level. Some data is only available on a process level, for example. So it has to be allocated, so distributed to specific products. That's the 4 big data requirements we have for EPDs. And we want to break this down, starting with the LCA model. In building up an LCA model for one specific product group based on the standards, based on the product category rules, we see that we have 2 different levels of data, material level and the process level data. In this phase, the what is needed. So what goes into the product and what goes out of the production process. On material level, the goal is to create a material base, which can be based on a list of materials, a raw material overview, including the material compositions of the materials going into a product. On a process level, it's important to map the in and the output flows of the production process. So what goes in order to produce the products in regards to energy, auxiliary materials, or water, for example, and what goes out of it, meaning emissions, types of waste, or also different byproducts which are produced within the same process. If we know what goes in and out of a product, we can go more in detail here. If we create product-specific EPDs, we have then 3 levels of data, starting with a material level. We know what materials are used, and now it's important to see more about the details of every material. So where does it come from? Where is it purchased? Detailed information about the recycling content, for example, and the transportation distance. So these are the 3 information we need on a material level. On a process level, we only need the amounts of the process flows going in and out of the production process. The third step is the product level, where the goal is to model a specific product composition. What is needed here? It's the product's recipe, its technical data about the product, and some general product information. So that's very basic, explained which data requirements are there for an EPD. When it comes now to concrete collection of data, internal coordination of data collection is very important. As we saw, we can divide the data collection in 3 different steps: material level, process level, and product level. And in doing so, we can also see that there are different responsibilities usually in the companies in collecting data. And that's exactly how you can distribute data collection. For the material level, so supplier-specific data, usually the purchase department is a good way to go to ask for. For process level, usually the production, plant manager position similar to this usually can help and has an overview of the energy consumption, for example. And on the product level, the research and development department or any other technical department is a good way where you can ask for this data. So now we've seen what is needed and whom to ask for the data. Now we want to briefly talk about which benefits you get of a platform when it comes to the data collection. In the platform, it's very clear which data is required. It's not one big framework. It's clearly defined data levels, where data can only be entered by the user. So in a platform, there are 3 well-structured data levels, which clarify what exactly needs to be collected and entered. This also leads to the internal collaboration part. Given these 3 data levels, as we already saw, it's very easy to coordinate internally who has to collect which data. It's also possible to export files from the EMIDAT platform in this case, to send it to a colleague. The colleague can fill out this exported sheet, send it back, and it can be imported into the platform again. A platform for data collection also provides simple data management. So the data is consolidated in one single place. It can be reviewed, it can be updated. It can also be the start of a structured data collection for the upcoming years. One very big advantage of a platform for data collection is that you have access to supplier EPDs. So all EPDs which exist can be found within the platform. Suppliers haven't to be asked separately in long email loops, but you can directly search for your supplier EPDs and find them. Also, the data can be entered directly by the supplier, as EMIDAT offers to invite suppliers to add their primary data if they don't have an EPD already, and get their final LCA results for free. And one other point is that a platform offers streamlined data upload. So it's possible to make data bulk uploads and also ERP integrations into the EMIDAT platform to reduce manual entry, to reduce errors, and to reduce manual work here. As a last point, a platform also offers benefits when it comes to data collection for the new CPR. As we know, in the last December, the revised CPR, Construction Products Regulation, came into force, which will make it mandatory for manufacturers to include product-specific environmental data in the DOPC. This means if you use a platform to collect data, you can manage, update, and review environmental data. You have a frame for data collection. You can establish a data collection methodology to be well prepared for the upcoming PCR and for the challenges which will come here. So to go more into detail, how does data collection with the EMIDAT platform look like? The with this point, we jump directly into the EPD platform. As you see here, the EPD platform is exactly structured in a way what I showed before, into the 3 different layers of data which are needed. So we have material level data, we have production level data, and we have product level data. To go into data collection with EPD very quickly, I'll show you how to create a new material here, to show you which data is needed. If you add a material on EPD, you can give it a name. Let's call it example. You choose out of which category the material comes from, which exact material type it is. You say which supplier it delivers, where this plant is located, from which country the product comes from, and how it's transported to your site, enter a transportation distance, and when data collection for the specific material is completed. You see here that secondary environmental data out of Econvent is connected, but you can also connect a supplier-specific EPD over a manual search here. Here I add a search for an example EPD for cement with a example supplier. When all the EPDs show up, you can choose, select, and connect this material to one specific EPD. As you see here, we have an overview over all materials relevant in this plant. You see the name, which material it is, from which supplier it's delivered, and which kind of data is connected to it. So that's data collection on a material level. Let's go into product level data. With EPD, how does production level data collection look like? First of all, you can specify your electricity mix, even if it's an average mix or a custom mix, and then you can specify your custom mix. You can do the same for the waste management. So which types of wastes are there and how is this waste treated? And then we have different production processes. You can choose whatever fits best for your production site. If you go into one of the production processes, you see that you can enter all the data I explained before. We always have a total production output, and then we ask for the in and outputs of this production process. So in this case, it would be waste, ancillary materials, and energy and fuels, which all refer to this total production output in order to do a proper allocation afterwards. That's production level data. And the last step would be product-specific data. You can see different products here. Let's go through data collection for this product. What you need is a product profile, including a product name, a product description, and an application or use case is given automatically by the tool. There's a unit which the product refers to and a period under review. And the next step, it's about technical data, which is mandatory by the product-specific PCR and the product usage. Then the third step is the recipe of a product. So which materials, the amount, and the suppliers. And then the last step, production process is chosen. And then the LCA can be calculated. So that's how data collection looks like with EPD. And in order to give you a starting point with this, we would like to go into a specific framework for data collection, which you can use to start with it. So that's our framework, which will be sent out to the ones who are interested in it. To give you a starting point, as I mentioned, it's structured in the same way. It starts with a material overview. What we ask here for is a material name, material description, if available, a CAS number, a category, so either if it's raw material, packaging, or ancillary, and if available, also documentation of material. Which then is the basis for the LCA model in the EMIDAT tool. We do the same with the production data. So energy carriers, process emissions, water, and waste flows. And with the process, we also need a process flow diagram, as you saw. Yes, that's the framework. That's what we ask for. And in order, if we have these data from the manufacturer, we can start modeling, start building the LCA model, and implement the product into the EMIDAT tool. And yeah, with this, I'm done with the general overview. And Janis, I would say we can jump into the question and answer section.
Perfect, amazing. So also, if there is specific questions, feel free to raise your hand and ask them directly to Bina. Otherwise, I saw that so far there was one question in the chat. We are here until past, so if there's open questions, feel free to post them now. There's also a couple of questions that were raised before the webinar. I will address them after we're done with the ones in the chat. But yes, maybe as a first question, this was about the data periods. There was the question, will there be any regulation for the data period in the near future? One of our competitors sent data from 6 months. Yeah, that is not a representable period due to not considering seasonal changes. Yeah, Ben, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, as a general rule, the data period always has to be 1 full year, usually starting with January until December, because that's also the way we see how the data is available at the manufacturers. So especially the product-specific data, production-specific data, sorry. There can be edge cases where the data is not available for 1 full year because of, for example, batch productions or for new products who just came on the market. There, program operators sometimes offer specific EPD types. So EPDs for product not on the market or prospective EPDs. So there are different names out there. There are different rules apply, but it has to be clear that it's not a regular EPD in these cases, but it's another type of EPD, so to say.
Perfect. So the next one is, will the EPD data verified by EMIDAT be accepted by the EC, I suppose European Commission, to include into the DOPC? Or has this to be an EPD submitted in the program operator of the market the manufacturer sells its good in?
For the data which is collected with EMIDAT, we do it independently of the program operator based on the usual standards, so ISO 14044 and EN 15804. And then program operator specific rules can apply, but all program operators EMIDAT works with are based in Europe, follow these standards, and are also connected to ECO platform, so a European base, so to say.
And maybe I can also add to this, since we had a second webinar in the end of last year. Also, if this is interesting, feel free to reach out to me. I can send over the recording from this webinar. So when it comes to the declaration of performance and conformity, this will require to include environmental data. It also starts with the global warming potential as the first indicator. And for this, you need an LCA that's done in the tool according to the standards that we're using, EN 15804A2. And then in the end, there will be notified bodies that will verify this data. And currently, many of the program operators, they are trying to be accredited as notified bodies so that in the end, they can then verify this. So with the EMIDAT tool, you will be prepared to, in the end, also give out declarations of performance and conformity. Cool. Any other questions from the chat? Otherwise, I'd be happy to jump. Yes, there is another one. You mentioned that EPDs from suppliers can be used. We buy for example, steel profiles from 2 suppliers who themselves buy from 3 or more different wholesalers who get the material from 2 or 3 steel producers. These producers have EPDs, but nobody knows which material at the end is really sent. Which EPDs do we use now?
One moment, I just read your question once again to ensure that I fully got it.
That's a long supply chain.
First part of the question I would say is we can use data from all suppliers. So we won't use only one EPD if you have 3 or 4 different suppliers. But if you have suppliers who deliver, so different suppliers delivering the same material, we can group these materials based on a weighted average, so based on the purchased amount of the last year. And the EPD of a supplier will go into the process based on this weighted average. So it will be a material group instead of one EPD, whereas you have 3 suppliers. And the other part is if you have suppliers having EPDs from wholesalers who have also these EPDs. Did I get it right, Janus, or correct me if I'm wrong?
I also got it like this. Otherwise, feel free to jump in. To the person who asked the question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, more or less right. As you said, Janos, it's a long supply chain. The problem is that the steel producers themselves, they never deliver directly. They always go through wholesalers, and at the end of the day, you end up with materials, but you do not know exactly how much material is coming from which producer. So it's really hard to make an average out of all these EPDs. But anyway, we will do it with you, the first test. That means I will be anyway advised by you how to do it, and we will find out together. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, there are always like very or specific cases. I think probably there is not one general rule how to deal with it. And that's, of course, always part of the process, getting support from us and deciding which way is the best in the specific use cases.
Perfect. Then going to the next question. This is another one that also goes into the direction of the new CPR that came into force in December. Also saying this again, if you're interested, to the audience, feel free to reach out to me. I can send you the link of our previous webinar that's on the new CPR. So a lot of these questions might also be clarified there. We also have a Q&A document from this webinar since there was a high interest. So yes, very happy to also send this over. But Bene, to you, and feel free to also throw this back if I should say a couple of words to this. Are there any DOPC format of LCA data within the new CPR?
As far as at the moment, it is required that environmental data is part of DOPC, starting with different product categories and being rolled out for more and more categories. There is until now there is no specific data format for this data. It has to be part of the DOPC. But
And then also adding to this, so I mean there will also be the digital product passport in the end that is also part of the new CPR. And to clarify there, the DOPC, so the Declaration of Performance and Conformity, is supposed to be a part of this digital product passport. But yes, the exact implementation is also still to be specified. Another one, are there any regulations at the European level, or will there be any in the future, that require manufacturers to create EPDs? Does this also apply to small companies?
Yes, there is. With the new construction product regulations, it won't require manufacturers to create EPDs, but to create environmental data. And the environmental data, which is contained in the EPDs, will be the same data which is required by the new CPR. So if you sell a product and bringing it to the market means you are required to create and deliver this product-specific data that also applies for small companies. So if you have to do a CE marking for your product, this rule applies.
Perfect. And then there was a comment on the previous question with the long supply chain. There is an answer, which is we have the same situation. Our supplier made an average EPD for us based on their sales, and they used this one. So maybe also for clarification, if you haven't seen it in the chat. And then another question also in regards to the UPC. Is there a current roadmap or timeline for the different product groups that will need environmental data in the UPC in the near future?
So it will start with precast elements. Janos, can you say a little bit more about the specific timeline?
Yes. So in the end, there's a prioritization by the European Commission of different product groups with which the implementation will start. So for high impact product categories such as steel, precast concrete, and also ready-mix concrete, it is expected that the implementation will start in the beginning of next year. But the exact timeline is still to be specified. The product categorization, the prioritization can be found on the website of the European Commission on the web page for the CPR. And also, we have included this in the presentation of our last webinar. So very happy also there to share the recording and the slides of the last webinar again. Perfect. Is there any other open questions from the audience? Yes. Apart from construction products, can we also prepare LCAs for mineral processing, so minery products? Is EMIDAT compatible for that sector?
So at the moment, we have a strong focus on construction products, but we deliver also LCAs according to ISO 14040 and ISO 14044, as this is the basis for EPDs. So in the end, it's only a matter of which format the data is distributed, so to say. So as EMIDAT, we also provide creation of PCFs, so product carbon footprints, for our industries.
Perfect. Is there any more questions from the audience? Okay, so for now not. If there's more questions coming up, also feel free to reach out. I have a couple of more questions that were asked prior to the webinar, so I would also raise these ones. I think we have covered many of them also in the webinar slides already, but just so we make sure that they are also properly answered to the ones that raised them. So one of the questions was also again regarding the new construction products regulation by the European Commission. Is it already known whether product-specific and above all site-specific environmental data must be provided for the upcoming CPR?
Yes, so that's exactly what's required. By the new CPR, it requires site-specific environmental data for specific products. And as far as we heard, there will also be audits in the future. So auditors coming to the manufacturer sites and control if you really met the requirements and if the environmental data, which was calculated in form of LCA, is correct and based on correct data.
Perfect. And then another one also in regards to the CPR. What approach would you recommend to companies that want to prepare for the upcoming EU CPR? But I suppose if you're here today and already wondering about data collection, you're already on the right way, but maybe throwing this over to you, Bina.
Yeah, starting with creating an EPD is always a good idea. It can mark a starting point for the data collection. You know what data is needed, in which form is it needed, and it can be a starting point for building up a structure for data collection. It can also be can be used in the future for improving, optimizing production processes and products. Yes, and the earlier you start, the better is the base. Then later on, when environmental data is also required for your specific product.
Perfect. And then a last one from the questions that we gathered prior to the webinar. Is it justifiable to use centrally collected data for the creation of an EPD, even though it is known that there will be deviations from the production-specific data at site level?
So in regards to EPD, it is possible to create average EPDs. But it's always better to create product-specific EPDs. So you can justify it for EPDs, but not for the CPR. And what can you do here? It's always possible to use production level data and allocate it to products. But the product data itself, so the recipe, has to be product or site specific.
Perfect. So as it seems, so far this would be it in regards to the Q&A. Just asking this to everyone who's here today again. If there's any question that you currently still have, feel free to post it into the chat, to also raise your hand. We are happy to answer it. And also if there's specific questions which you do not want to raise now, Ben and I will definitely be here until past. So feel free to also stay in here if there's no further questions. And then when we end the webinar, we're happy to stay in here and also still answer them. But yes, asking this again, if there's questions, feel free to raise them now, because otherwise, yes, we would say thank you for attending today, and we'd be wishing you a great week.
Thanks to all of you for joining.
Perfect. Asking to the people who are still in here, is there specific questions from your side?